On today's show, it wasn't pretty, but the Capitals get back in the win column with a shootout win over the Senators.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, I want to thank you for making this your first listen of the day. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the trade deadline is on Friday. And what potential players could the Capitals be interested in as we get closer and closer to that date? If you are an everydayer of the show, you know I have said that I think it would be advantageous for the Capitals to get it done sooner than later, that if we wait all the way until Friday, we might give up too much or potentially might not get the player that we're looking for. Who is the most recent name circulated around the Capitals? I'll talk about that a bit later. I'll talk about that Chucky Lindgren, the Outlaw, gets an extension with the Capitals. Ultimately, I think it was a matter of when, not if it was going to be happen. But with his extension, that adds stability in net for the Capitals for years to come. But just to get it going here, we'll talk about the Capitals as they take down the Senators in the shootout. And if you watch the game, it was pretty ugly. And it very well could have gone to the Senators yet again. And I don't know what I would have ultimately told you guys that, hey, the Capitals have now dropped 4 in a row. It was pretty close to happening as the Capitals were up by 3 goals. They let the Senators back in the game, tied the game. They got the lead. They let the Senators tie it again. It had to go to the shootout, and ultimately Dylan Strome was clutch in the shootout, which was a good thing, as the Capitals have no real specialist like they've had in previous years. I'm talking TJ Oshie and Evgeny Kuznetsov, but just to kind of paint this game with a broad brush, the things I talked about that needed to happen happened, and what do you know? They find the back of the net. Connor McMichael setting up in front of the net. Good things happen. Was right there, was able to knock it in. Same goes for Pierre-Luc Dubois and Tom Wilson with that slot pass. That all things considered, there was some good points to this game, but ultimately could have gotten out of hand as well. So let's do that. Let's dive into the most recent game here, the Capitals versus the Senators. And again, what I have said about this team still holds true right now, is that if you had no context, if the Senators were out there just in blank jerseys and you said, kind of give me your thoughts on this team, you would say, wow, they move the puck very well. They're very quick, a lot of young talent. That is probably what you would say. And then oftentimes you're like, well, that's the Senators. And then you kind of know their history and their track record. So then you're like, man, maybe it's not as great as it sounds. But the Senators are a really a good team, all things considered. I really do believe it. I think they're on the rise, and they will be a team to be reckoned with in years to come. Ultimately, don't think it's probably going to be their year this year. Stranger things have happened, but I think that better days lie ahead. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is a nail biter. And that was definitely the case in this game, the Capitals versus the Senators. Like I said, that required the shootout. The game started off strong for the Capitals, who jumped out to a commanding 3-goal lead in this game. And I'm like, kind of preparing myself. Okay, I don't need to worry about a loss. And then as the game went on, things got a little bit more unsure. Connor McMichael opened up the scoring just under 2 minutes into the game, taking advantage of a loose puck around the crease. Hang out in front of the net, and guess what? Good things will happen. The secret sauce for Connor McMichael all season has been hanging out in front of the net, and what do you know? money for Connor McMichael. There was a brief challenge for goaltender interference, but it was ultimately denied. So Connor McMichael is definitely a guy that is, like I say, growing by leaps and bounds. And you can see the confidence just exuding off of him. Quite a game. But as far as Connor McMichael and the second line, it wasn't done there. He also assisted on PLD, who doubled the lead to 2-0 shortly thereafter. So the Capitals were in a good position to start this game, and I was feeling very confident. Then Tom Wilson as well, scoring a goal, that there was a feeling of confidence. And there was a moment earlier in the game that Drew had a late hit on Tom Wilson. And, well, Tom Wilson wanted to address Claude Giroux over it. And Tkachuk is like, no, you're going to have to answer to me. Ultimately, the fight left a bit to be desired. There were no true fireworks, but two real heavyweights going head-to-head. That is exciting. And Tom Wilson was that bull in the China shop all night. He was taking out his anger on every Senators player that was in proximity. And ultimately, the Capitals were the benefactors, because an engaged Tom Wilson is a great Tom Wilson, and he was a difference maker in this game. But talking about the comeback from the Senators, however, it wouldn't be a Capitals game without some drama. And what do we talk about on this show? The Capitals need to what, class? Play a 60-minute game. What didn't they do? They didn't play a 60-minute game. This wheel really started to wobble and could have fallen off for the Caps. In the second period, the tide began to turn when Shane Pinto netted a goal for Ottawa, marking the start of that dreaded comeback. Then there was the back and forth action that kept us with, raised pulse rates, shall we say. Then you take a look at a powerful one-timer from Claude Giroux in the third period that brought Ottawa to within one goal. And things only got more tense from there. And that's what I was talking about in this game, that, the things that they needed to work on, they did to start the game. That was not the case towards the end of the game. Other stories in this game, for sure, was too many penalties. The officials were calling a very tight game out there, all things considered. And, to be clear here, they were calling it for Ottawa as well. It was just, in general, a very tightly called contest, shall we say. But, a good thing for the Capitals, I'm feeling good that they found a way to overcome. And you take a look at it, like I say, watching this game, there was a feeling out there that things could have gotten out of control, and it did get out of control. They tied the game. They had a 3-goal lead, and they tied this game, if you can believe it. That is definitely something that they need to work on going forward. That it seems like they get the lead, then they kind of take their foot off the gas, and then all of a sudden it's just like, okay, we need to batten down the hatches. In this game, they were able to do it. It's just, it shouldn't have come to that. It shouldn't have come to overtime and the shootout. That is definitely things that the Capitals will have to clean up. But, like I say, taking a look at it, that Ottawa team does have a lot of talent, and they took it to the Capitals. And it's a good thing that the Capitals did ultimately have the answer and walked away with a victory in this one. Because, like I say, if I would have had to come to you guys talking about yet another loss, that would have been a tough thing for me to do. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about the great news of the day. Ultimately, it was a good thing. The Capitals ended up winning this game, albeit taking the shootout. But Chucky Lindgren, the outlaw, Charlie Lindgren, gets an extension. What will that mean for the Capitals? I'll discuss straight ahead. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1-ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to snack. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So the news that we've been waiting for, I think that we ultimately knew it was coming sooner than later. Found out this morning, crossing the wire here, that the Capitals signed Charlie Lindgren to an extension. It was a good thing, and you take a look at it, the ball was in Charlie Lindgren's court. He could have gone out this summer and tried to secure a number one job somewhere. But you take a look at it, he's playing on a really good team, the Capitals, and maybe not as many games that he had hoped for, or he sees himself playing in the future. But I think that he is taking a look at the Capitals as a team that took a bit of a flyer. They took a chance on him, and that didn't go unnoticed. And I think that he also knows, he remembers history, that when he first came to the Capitals, he was the perceived backup then. It was Darcy Kemper. But what did Darcy Kemper do? He faltered, and Charlie Lindgren took over the reins in net. You got to think in the back of his mind somewhere, he's thinking to himself, I've seen this movie before, and I very well could take over if called upon. And if you take a look at it, the big thing, could he have signed for more money elsewhere? For sure. But would that be a real victory if he was the starting netminder for, say, the Sabres or the Blackhawks or the Anaheim Ducks, the Sharks, these kind of teams that, hey, I'm the starter, I'm the number one in net, but bad news, I play on a horrible team. So I think that he likes playing with this team. One of the things that we know is that Chris Patrick reached out to him, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the segment, that I think the way the Capitals handled it was the right way of doing things. And if it wasn't for the maturity of Chucky, he very well could have tried to go outside of the organization. It's got to be kind of a tough pill to swallow that he sees Logan Thompson getting that big, lengthy extension, and his isn't, well, quite as long. So let's dive into that next here, talking about Chucky Lindgren and what it means for the Capitals going forward here. So the Capitals have announced the re-signing of goaltender Charlie Lindgren to a 3-year, $9 million contract extension, ensuring that he will remain with the team through the 27-28 season. So what I know for sure is that the Capitals will be in a really good position for years to come in net. For at least the next 3 seasons, I have little to no concerns in net. The interesting part, however, is what does that mean for a very full Capitals pipeline? You take a look at Hunter Shepard, who is going to be a free agent this summer. You take a look at Clay Stevenson, that these guys are probably, unless they get moved somewhere else, going to be playing for the Hershey Bears for quite some time. At what point are they going to tap into that talent that they have in Hershey? Hunter Shepard, Clay Stevenson, Garen Bjorklund, Mitchell Gibson, all these different netminders, all the way down from the AHL, ECHL, all the way down to prospects. When are they going to make good on some of those players that it's good that you have a lot of great talent in net, but if you never utilize it, is that the right thing to do? But the Capitals made the decision to go for stability. They're not worried about, hey, we got to put these young players to use. They want a proven winner in either netminder A or B or 1A type situation, and they have that in LT, and now they also have it in Charlie Lindgren, and it was the right move to make. And why did this happen? Is that the Capitals know that the salary cap is going to be going up next year over the next 3 seasons, so it gives them a bit more flexibility. The question, however, now is, will the Capitals still be able to sign Jakob Chychrun to an extension? If you had to give me a quick answers here, would you rather have one player back but not both? Would it rather be Charlie Lindgren or Jakob Chychrun? Which one would you choose? I like Chucky's game, but if it means not having Jakob Chychrun come back, I don't like it as much. Now, I understand the salary cap is going up, and I don't know if that is a real scenario, but if that was an either or, it makes it interesting. And when you take a look at the financial outlook, the Capitals are projected to have approximately $23.12 million available for spending during the offseason, as several key players such as Chychrun, Mangiapane, Radish, Eller, Dowd, Vrana, Dylan McIlrath are pending unrestricted free agents. Of course, we don't need all of those players to come back. I think that the Capitals have better options, in Ryan Leonard, for example. So, if Andrew Mangiapane moves on to, perceived greener pastures, then so be it. Lars Eller, I never saw him as being a part of the answer for more than this season. Jacob Vrana, let's be real here. Nick Dowd, I would like to find a place and a time and a place for him to come back here with an extension. I hope that happens before it makes it all the way to the summer. And Dylan McIlrath, who has that physical aspect to his game that I love. That is another player that I'd like to have come back. So all different players that the Capitals have to consider, as far as how much money they have and how much money is left after they have now signed LT and Charlie Lindgren, putting aside a lot of money in netminding alone. Now, additionally, the NHL salary cap is expected to increase to $95.5 million next season. But again, Chris Patrick loves this deal, and I ultimately do. I think that there is great stability in Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren. But as far as Chris Patrick praised Lindgren for his professionalism and reliability since joining the organization back in 2022. He noted the retention of both goalies under contract provides essential stability at critical position and fosters competition between them. And, you take a look at it, it's a good position. I still think the perception is that Logan Thompson is number one, but, it's neck and neck. Charlie Lindgren is no slouch either, making it a really competitive battle, and I think that ultimately the Capitals are going to be the ones that benefit from it. But as far as contract details and comparisons, Lindgren's new contract comes shortly after Thompson signed a 6-year, $35.1 million extension, averaging $5.85 million annually. Now, do I think that Logan Thompson will be on the Capitals for 6 years? Probably not, but that is all a part of being in professional sports. And, that's what, these big elite stars want, is they want term and they want a lot of money. That is what Logan Thompson had. If Chris Patrick did not make that kind of offer to him and his representation, he might have sought to go somewhere else. So I think that Thompson was looking for stability. I think that Charlie was looking for stability, but ultimately LT was the one that got the bigger deal. Now, together, their cap hit is $8.85 million, is relatively economical compared to several individual starting goaltenders in the league. I'm thinking of Shesterkin in particular. Now, performance. In the previous season, let's remember that Lindgren was one of the biggest reasons that the Capitals made it to the playoffs period last season, achieving career highs in multiple categories. He played 50 games, made 48 starts, recorded 35 wins, and achieved 6 shutouts in the 23-24 season. Again, last season, to revisit that here briefly, that was supposed to be Darcy Kemper's year. A bit of a square peg in a round hole, if you will, for the Capitals. Charlie Lindgren rose like a phoenix and ultimately saved the Capitals when they needed him. Now, his outstanding performance, it significantly contributed to the Capitals' playoff qualifications, of course, and that's last year. But in a league of what have you done for me lately, this season, Lindgren has continued to alternate starts with Thompson and holds a record of 13 wins, 10 losses, and 3 overtime losses, alongside a 2.70 goals against average and an .898 save percentage across 27 games. So all things considered, not too bad. And one of the things that Lindgren said as well is he knew he had to play well because there was, questions surrounding his future. And, before today, I think he was probably concerned where I'm going to end up landing. And he knew that he had to bring his A game each and every game if he wanted to land on his feet. Now, as far as speculation about Lindgren, the contract extension began in January when ESPN's Kevin Weeks reported that the Caps were considering a deal worth between 3.5 and 4 mil. GM Chris Patrick also highlighted the effectiveness of the current goaltending arrangement during a pre-trade deadline interview, noting that it was contributed to the team's success by allowing both goalies to maintain their stamina throughout a demanding schedule. So it has been an alternating thing back and forth. It's been LT, it's been Charlie, but then LT ran away with it for a bit of time there. But all things considered, I think the Capitals will need to come to terms with who their number one is, in this latter part of the season as we're, making it closer and closer to the end of the season. And for sure, by the time we make it to the playoffs, there needs to be a clear number one, in my opinion. Now, the Capitals are currently positioned at the top of the Eastern Conference, leading the second place Toronto Maple Leafs by 6 points. Now, so the Capitals are in a really great position. It is the Capitals in first place. I know that the Canucks are out there kind of nipping at their heels a bit as well, even though there is quite a bit of separation. But for a team like the Canucks, I think they're hoping that the Capitals stumble a little bit. But I think that there will be less stumbling now with Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren in net, at least ostensibly. As you saw, Logan Thompson was in the net tonight, and still it was tough. Now, to be clear here, this wasn't squarely on LT's shoulders. There was some, tough plays for him. The Caps aired him out to dry a bit out there. But I think that the Capitals, as long as they're playing well as a team, that they are in a good position to win games with either Logan Thompson or Charlie Lindgren in net. But the good news for Chucky is that he got the deal I think that he was looking for. Again, I think that he would have ultimately liked a longer-term deal for more money. But I think that he realizes at this point of his career, he feels comfortable with the Caps. And I think that he realizes that, like I say, if Logan Thompson does falter here or there, that he's ready to swoop in and help save this team yet again. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about the most recent trade rumblings. They are intensifying as Friday is getting closer and closer, the trade deadline. Who is the most recent name circulated as coming to the Capitals potentially? I'll break it all down straight ahead. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. So like I say, as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline, there are names being circulated out there by the insiders about, hey, they might be a good fit with the Capitals. And we've heard quite a laundry list. We've heard of Lawton, and now I'm going to talk about the most recent name being circulated, and that is Ryan Donato. And you take a look at it, the former second-round pick by the Bruins in 2014 NHL draft has really made a name for himself over the past 8 seasons. Could he be a good fit for the Capitals, playing with teams like the Bruins, Wild, Sharks, and Kraken? As far as his contract and performance after wrapping up his contract with the Kraken, Donato signed a 2-year, $4 million deal with the Chicago Blackhawks. And let me tell you, he's having a breakout season. Playing alongside rookie Connor Bedard, Donato has tallied an impressive 43 points in just 58 games, featuring 21 goals and 22 assists. So, hey, on paper, I like it. If I found out tomorrow that he was going to be joining the team, I'd like the deal. I think that what we have seen from the Capitals here as of late, that they need a bit of a boost. They need a B12 shot, if you will, to help get this team going. And I think they have the pieces in place, but I think a player like Donato, Ryan Donato, could definitely help bolster this team. One of the best parts of Donato is his versatility on the ice. He plays as both a center and winger, so the Capitals would have some flexibility and is a significant contributor to Chicago's 6th-ranked power play unit. Notably, 17 of his goals have been scored at even strength, putting him tied for 10th in the NHL for 5-on-5 goals. So I think that, he would be a key contributor. I envision him playing at the center position, if you can believe that. That I think that, especially that third line that has struggled, I think that he would be a good fix. And guess what? Among all the players on the Capitals, none have scored more 5-on-5 goals than Donato has put up this season. So as far as connection, oftentimes it's easier for players to join teams if there is a familiarity factor, and they do have that, as he has a connection with Taylor Radish, who, as you remember, was a teammate for him with the Blackhawks last season. Now, while they weren't regularly paired together, they certainly have their moments, outscoring opponents 4-1 when they were on the ice together. So there is that connection. And like I say, when you hear players and they say, well, why did you come to the Capitals? They'll say, well, I knew Dylan Strome. And the one thing I know about Dylan Strome is it seems like he knows a lot of different players, but in this case, he knows Taylor Radish. So if there's that comfort factor, or say he could reach out to Taylor and say, hey, you guys are putting up good numbers this year. I hear the locker room's pretty good. Let me know your thoughts about the Capitals. Should I consider doing that? So looking ahead, Donato is in the final year of his 2-year contract, averaging $2 million per year, and will be an unrestricted free agent after this season. So not the ideal position. I think that even though it's an uncomfortable position for me, I think the Capitals are in the position that they have to do something like that. I don't like going out and acquiring a player just for, a couple, 2-3 months, some situation like that. I would rather them sign a player to some term. And they could do that with Donato, I guess, at some point. But those are the big intriguing names that are circulating out there. And as the Capitals eye the trade deadline, they're projected to have about around $3.65 million in cap space, not counting the $1.9 million hit from Sonny Milano, who is currently on the injured reserve, but making his way back here shortly. So you take a look at it. Like I talked about, it is no mistake that a guy like Sonny Milano, who faced this mysterious illness, is now edging his way closer to return near the trade deadline. Alex Alexeyev is, getting in some work down in Hershey. That I think that some of these players, like Sonny Milano, Jacob Vrana, Alexeyev, some players of that caliber could be on the move. It's just going to be based on need. You could put Lars Eller in that mix as well, Andrew Mangiapane, maybe for a team that is competing out there that needs a bit of a boost, because, what are some of the things that we know is that when Ryan Leonard joins this team at some point, they're going to need to make some room for him. So whether, they have to make room for Donato or they have to make room for Ryan Leonard, the Capitals are in a position that I think there's players on this team that could move out in favor for some upgrades. And you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about like a Lars Eller. I'm talking about, players that have not really contributed either because they haven't played that well, like Jacob Vrana, even though, he hasn't played horribly, and Sonny Milano, who has faced this long injury. So as the trade deadline gets closer, the Capitals do have a lot of questions about how they want to address the roster. It is a tightrope for them to walk, for sure, as the chemistry is, supposed to be out of this world. Everyone gets along together. But what we have seen tonight and here recently is that even though the Capitals won in the shootout, they definitely need a boost. They dropped 3 games in a row and very well could have dropped their 4th game tonight. That I definitely do think that a player like Donato or Lawton or mix and match, those kind of players that you hear circulating out there, could definitely be what the doctor ordered. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On NHL, where they have you covered on the NHL at large 5 days a week, available wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.